I think everyone was driven. That doesn't necessarily mean that everyone was like a ruthless go-getter, or was super focused on getting their straight A's or excelling in the sports that they were doing. But I think that most people kind of had their niche and they were being supported to succeed in their niche, but they also seemed, quite motivated to do that. And that, I think, looked different for every person, but I think most people I met, and I think it was also quite inspiring.
I'm Glenn Herbert, and I'm an editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private schools to gain insights into their programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administrators. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
Probably the people I met, which I feel like is a very basic answer. But I mean, one of my best friends to this day, this is someone actually I just talked to this weekend because he called me to congratulate my grandma for her birthday, is someone I met at TCS. And I mean, we spent 2 years together. We also did grade 11 and grade 12 there. And since we've seen each other twice in the past 8 years, but we still, we were quite close. I mean, I think that was maybe the most formative friendship I formed, but I think also many other people kind of met there along the way are still really important to me. And I think also shaped who I am as a person, like shaped the things that are important to me. So I think that was the most influential part. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, it's really the only private school in Canada. I mean, the only school period in Canada I ever looked at. I don't think because I don't really do sports, I don't think I ever really stepped foot into any of the other schools. I feel like I can't give a fair answer to that question because my sample size is one. If I would have to guess, is the people, just because obviously I think every school, I mean, even for me, the universities that I'm familiar with has a slightly different feel, just because they attract maybe slightly different populations. They also place their importance on different things. They focus on different things. So I think one thing that I really appreciate, and that maybe from hearing from other people that have been to other schools or have played sports with other schools, is a certain sense of trust, of support, of a certain sense of family-ish feeling, which are maybe, I guess, also boarding schools tend to bring with them. But yeah, always I felt really welcome. Compassionate, open, and diverse, which I guess that's not necessarily an adjective of a person, but varied. So just, I think a place, more than it would be a person who's open to and welcoming to all sorts of different people, all sorts of different interests, whether you're a sports person, academic person, an arts person, whatever your identity is, would be a place that would be welcoming to you, or a person that would be welcoming and open to you. One thing, and this maybe isn't the best PR answer, but I mean, it's a private school. So I guess the obvious shared characteristics of all people that mostly, I mean, there were people on scholarships, obviously, which I think is really important, but mostly people that can afford to go to private school, because sometimes even in a foreign country. I guess maybe also now, I mean, I look at schooling, that's what I research. I can't help but notice that that's quite strong and also privileged characteristic that most students shared. But I think more in terms of content, I think everyone was driven. That doesn't necessarily mean that everyone was like a ruthless go-getter, or was super focused on getting their straight A's or excelling in the sports that they were doing. But I think that most people kind of had their niche and they were being supported to succeed in their niche, but they also seemed, quite motivated to do that. And that, I think, looked different for every person, but I think most people I met, and I think it was also quite inspiring, kind of had their thing. And it's also nice now, I guess, having had 8 years to see how my classmates progressed. I think quite a few people ended up pursuing that thing, I guess, including me. I'm doing a PhD, probably is a quite specific driven thing, a good passion project. So I think that was something that I saw in many of my friends, many of my classmates. I think it might have been respect, as in respect for yourself, respect for your classmates, for your housemates, and for the school. I think it was, the school, I think, cared that we did well in academics and whatever. But I think to me, it always felt more important the school cared that we took care of ourselves in our community. And that looked, I think, different for different people. For some people, that meant, if you were maybe kind of slacking off in school right now, reminding yourself, like, why are you here? Like, probably someone is paying for you to be here, respecting that. Or it meant, you have a talent. You're worth pursuing that talent. Like, invest that time into the effort into yourself. And then invest like time and effort into your community. Like, I think there was always a great value placed on shared activities that we had together. Like, we had like house dinners where you would kind of have like a special time where only your housemates would go either for an outing, so you would go to somewhere outside of school, or to an inning, so you would have dinner in school but at a different time than all the other students, and maybe you would dress up for something. And those things are really important. It was important that you show up, that you participate. Obviously, if you were a bit shyer, I think it was fine, but there was, I think, an emphasis placed on showing up for the community, showing up for yourself, and respecting those things and honoring them. Maybe the diversity of people. I think my idea of boarding school or private school, I think, was quite academically focused. I think I had some friends, also people maybe that came in on a sports scholarship or that chose schools based on they have a good football team or a good hockey team. I think that they came in with like, oh, this is going to be like a very sportsy school. And I think what surprised me the most, and I think what might also surprise others the most, would go in looking at a particular area that the school offers you, is that actually it has quite a few different, quite well-developed areas. And I think that also helped me as a student kind of try out things. Like, I never saw myself as particularly like artsy person. Like, I loved creative writing, but I had never really acted before. That wasn't something I considered, something I would like, or something I would like to do. But then I had the chance and I got to try it out. And I think, that definitely, I didn't expect that. And I had some friends that they came in and they were kind of like, oh, I'm going to study and play football. And then they ended up, in winter, when there was football, maybe it wasn't offered, they got to play like a character in a musical. Theater, I don't know if you had music. You might. And I think that's nice. I guess also then gives you a chance for the school to surprise you, but also maybe for you to surprise yourself. It made me a more open person to other people, to other backgrounds, to new situations. I think it made me, it's the reason I'm studying and living abroad. In terms of practical skills, I don't think my English would be as good as it is today if I wouldn't have studied in English at that age and had the chance to really immerse myself in the language. I see it now. Like, I have colleagues who the English is brilliant, but sometimes I can see that obviously having gotten a head start to living in an English-speaking country does give me an advantage. And I think on a more personal level, it's the openness. Maybe it's also certain, I've mentioned this before, but a certain self-confidence of you can put yourself in that unusual situation. Like, it's also like, going to boarding school at any age probably maybe can be a big step. You have to leave home, you have to leave your friends, your family, maybe even your country. So I think going through that experience and kind of seeing that it can work out for you, it can be quite empowering. And it definitely was for me. I think one thing, and I guess it's also just the character of high school, and just the way you are at developmentally at that age. Looking back, I cared so much about being cool and being friends with the cool people. And I think sometimes being in a boarding school can heighten that, because that's not only your peer group, that's also kind of your family, and it's all kind of wrapped in one. And then it's also the people you have in class. And maybe looking back, I wish there would have been more programs maybe to tackle that. But I guess it's telling teenagers to not be teenagers. That might be a bit tricky. But I think that's something that definitely looking back, I'm like, I wasted so much time thinking and caring about things that now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, that definitely was not relevant or not necessary, and maybe made me do things, but I'm like, it wasn't worth looking cool. So I think that's one thing. The other thing maybe would be, I wish there would have been more support also for people considering not studying in Canada. So I know they did a decent amount of things for people going to the UK, also because there was a decent contingent of people studying in the UK. And in the end, actually, I'm a product of that too, because one of the reasons I ended up at the LSE is because one of my classmates did their bachelor's there, and I emailed him and I was like, "Did you like it?" And he spoke of it really highly, motivating me to apply. But I think because I knew I wanted to go to the US, and I was kind of looking at US schools, navigating the SATs. And I think that at times felt a bit daunting. I think partially because, just in my case, my family did not assist me with my university choice at all. Also because they were not familiar with like a non-German system. And I think the system relied a bit on your parents guiding you. I think because I didn't have that, there were points where I was like, I don't know if I'm doing this correctly. And I understand, a guidance counselor, their job isn't to choose a school for you. They can't do that. Only you can do that. Or maybe your family can do that. But I think there were moments where I was like, I wish there would be more offers, like the offers for people going to Canadian schools, for people looking at US schools. But I guess it's also a numbers game. There were maybe 3 or 4 of us in a class of like 120, 130. So I'm also aware that probably what I got is also what I could have gotten. But it would have been nice to have had some more support. I think when I was there, I was quite unaware, quite blind to this great advantage it was. And to, I think, all the soft skills it was teaching me that were going to be beneficial at universities, of being able to already live by myself. I think when I went to the US and I lived in dorms, and I realized I had 2 years ahead of the other people that were living not at home for the first time in their life. And I felt like all the things that they had to learn, that are tough things to learn, from I don't know, how do I feed myself, to how do I already structure my day if there's kind of not a parent there at all moments of the day, like kind of maybe guiding me, nudging me, and telling me what to do. I think that was immensely helpful. And I think when I was there, I didn't realize that I was kind of acquiring all these skills. Because for me, that just was, it was just living my life. I think also being able to interact with adults that I hadn't known. So I think there was always quite a premium place that students being allowed to articulate their opinions. We were asked for what we wanted. Sometimes within reasons, but even in class, like, we were challenged. We had to do presentations. I think those are all skills that maybe as a student, I was kind of like, oh, why do I have to do this? And then now I think also because I guess I spent a lot of time at university the past couple of years, I really came to appreciate those things. And then I think just the privilege of having, speaking English. Obviously, that's also just given the environment I've chosen. I guess if I would live just in Germany studying in German, maybe that wouldn't matter that much. But I think that's something I didn't think about back then. I had to speak English to have friends and go to class. But I didn't realize, this is actually a premium life skill for kind of working and living in a global and English speaking world. Yeah. And then maybe the last thing, and this is maybe also a critical point, and just, I research schooling now in education systems. And from that perspective, private schools are quite peculiar places. So I think there's also certain habitus that going to any private school, I don't think this is TCS specific, endows you with. But I think obviously I got a certain middle or upper class habitus, being familiar with certain value systems, with certain mannerisms, with how to have small talk, how to to know that you're a person who can negotiate with institutions and who can ask things from institutions. I mean, those are things that obviously I learned there that going to a different school I probably wouldn't have learned, at least not at that time. It's the people. This, I think I talked in our conversation a lot about my classmates, but I think it's also the teacher, the support staff, people doing after school activities, often many of which are actually teachers, the people that are leading the houses, because I always experience them as caring, as open, as friendly, as interested in students, not just as students, as little grade producing machines, but as humans with varying interests and issues. And I mean, also as a teenager, sometimes who have a broken heart, or I don't know, who have nothing to wear to the dance. And I think there was always an understanding, and I think always an approach to, okay, how can we equip you with the skills to deal with this, whether it's a school or personal problem. And I think that was really formative. And yeah, I really loved it. Then too, I mean, it's quite pretty. I think the school grounds are beautiful. And if you like running, if you like sports, I mean, there's many trails around the school ones. I think also quite big. It's also nice because it's not in a big city. So I remember there was a time in my life where the most exciting thing I did was going to Tim Hortons. But I think that's actually, looking back, I'm like, that's actually not that bad of a thing. I think back then, after like the 20th time of drinking French vanilla, I think it's called, I was like, okay, well, I can do something else now. But I think it was a nice and kind of very safe environment, I think, to be a teenager. But it was also not completely boring that you're only kind of locked in school. So that was nice. I mean, Port Hope is quite a pretty cute town. And then the third thing, I mean, the academics, I guess for me, now working in academia worked out. I always felt supported. I felt challenged. I liked the array of courses that were offered. I also liked that you could challenge yourself. I mean, AP courses were offered, which I'm guessing are probably offered now as well, probably even more so than they were back when I was there. And that made, college also much easier because I came in with credits. Which I actually, it's another thing. I didn't realize that's what happening when I was taking AP classes. And then suddenly I looked at my transcript and I graduated my bachelor's actually a year early. And one of the reasons I was able to do that is because I came in with some AP credits that seemed like a nuisance to get as a high school student, but then super useful as a university student. So yeah, I think the academics, at least when I was there, I can't imagine that they got much worse. So I thought they were quite good. Were nice, and yeah, sparked interests in me that are still feeding off of now 8 years old. I feel like the best thing is probably not listen to me, but to go there. Because in the end, it also has to work for you. I think with every school, I loved TCS. And I think most of my friends loved TCS. Actually, my best friend and me had this whole conversation of our dream would be to one day if we have a child, to send it there. Our second dream would be to name a building after ourselves, but that's, I think, slightly more unrealistic, at least for me. But yeah, I think you would just go there, see for yourself, meet the people, because that's what convinced me in a way, like just meeting one parent and their kids and seeing how much they loved it, and also seeing that I connected with them, and then meeting some parents and the school representatives at that one evening in Germany. That was enough. And I didn't regret that choice because that impression just connected with me, or connected with my family. But I think, yeah, there's only so much you can read about a school, so much you can see in interviews or videos online. I think in the end, it's about how do you feel when you're there. I felt really, really good, but I guess the only way for you to find that out is to try it out. Maybe two. The first one is you might be homesick, especially I think if it's a younger student. Boarding school can be a bit overwhelming. Another country, if it's an international student, can be overwhelming, and that's okay, and it will probably pass. But talk to someone. It's not embarrassing, and it's not something to laugh about, although eventually you might, but in that moment, people will take you seriously. They'll probably have been there themselves. And then the other thing is make the most of it. Like I remember very early on, I gave like an interview, I had like a conversation with the headmaster of TCS. And in my application, I had to pick like a motto, and it was like, life is what you make of it. And then he asked me about it. And I feel like that applies to TCS. I mean, it applies to, I think, I guess, all schools. It's make the most of it. Like join a club. I mean, if you don't like it, you can just stop showing up, but try it. Like, I mean, they will make you join a sport, but join a sport. I did one term, I did like the cop-out sport. That was basically like, we watched some videos and did some yoga. I was like the sport for the people that didn't want to do sport. And I now regret it because I wish I would have like learned another actual sport. So yeah, just try it out, do all the things, meet all the people, and just assume that people probably want the best for you. And even if, I mean, yeah, you were probably a teenager. Sometimes if adults are kind of annoying, they'll probably mean well.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.